Hello everyone, this is my first Unity tutorial video on how to make a game inside Unity game in Gen. So to follow this tutorial you would need to have your Unity hub installed and your Unity version to the latest LTS version, which is 2022 LTS version. So once you have installed and you have created a project, you would see this blank scene in here. There are some windows such as game window. We have scene window up here where everything you can see, and an hierarchy window, and a window name is inspector. So let's just remove other windows for now. Okay, so everything in Unity is a game object. As you can see, this is a game object. So this main camera is a game object. Every game object by default has a transform component attached to it, which we can move around. So here I go and select the move tool, and now I can move this camera around. So we aren't seeing a difference in view because there isn't any game object in view besides the camera, so there isn't anything rendering right now. So for that we need to render a sprite. So if we go ahead and create a 2D game object, because we are creating a 2D game, so we go and create a empty game object. So we have a empty game object but it's not rendering anything. We can move it around. That's because this game object only has a transform component, so it will not render any sprite or any image unless it has a sprite render component. So we can go in the inspector window, click on add component, search for sprite renderer component, and we click on the sprite render component. Now this does not have any sprite, so it's not rendering any sprite. So we can go in here and put on our ball sprite, which you can see in here, and we still aren't seeing anything, but it's we can see it in the scene view but not the game view. So for that we just need to make its z value 0. So now it's on the front of the camera and now we can see it. So now this is the transform component has three properties. One is the position. Here you can see I increase the position. Here I move it, its position is changing. And second is the rotation. I can rotate it on the y-axis. So in 2D we only rotate it on the z-axis, so I can rotate it on the z-axis as here. Let's rotate 180-degree here. And third property is scale, means the size of the object. So by default every object is 1, uh, has size 1, so we can scale it up by 3 times, so changing the x value and the y value by 3, or let's do it by 4, a bit more bigger. And now we have a ball game object. So we can change the name of this object by going in the inspector and changing the name to ball. Now we have this ball character which is in the scene, and this is a play button, pause button, and step button. So now the game is not currently playing. So now if we click on the game, you will see that nothing is happening. Our ball is still there. We can still move it, we can still see the ball, and everything else. Now we can pause the game, uh, and the game is now not running. So to test it out greatly, we can add a rigid body component on the game object, rigid body 2D. So we are in 2D, so we will attach the rigid body 2D component. However, if you are working in 3D, then you should attach the rigid body component instead of rigid body 2D. So a rigid body component is basically a component which makes the object fall, like it add gravity to the object and makes it simulate in physics. uh, so now the object will fall. So now if we hit play, the object will fall from up to down. As you can see, the object is falling, and it will still falling. So now, so the object went out of the camera, and it will not be rendered anymore. So now if as you can see, if we remove the rigid body component, it will not fall anymore and stay at the same position. So now as you can see, the object is not moving. So if we let's attach the rigid body component back. Oh sorry, it should be rigid body 2D, rigid body 2D component. So rigid body has two body types. One is dynamic, second is kinematic, and third is static. So it should you should mostly be working with dynamic body type, unless you are having like a object who doesn't move. So kinematic is for that. If you have an object who is not moving, or you don't want it to move, so now in kinematic it will not move or fall. You can still move it with within the scene view, and it will still change its position, but now it will not fall during the game. So now if we go in our project window, everything we have in our project window are our assets. So we have a assets folder and a scenes folder by default. Here we can create new folder and import a new sprite. So for example, we can create a new folder. Let's name it scripts. So a script is basically a component, which a custom component which we can create. Like here we have components such as rigid body 2D sprite render. So it's a custom component which we can where we can write our code and it will function. So let's create our script first. Let's create our go in here, create a C# script. Let's name it test script. So you can name it anything you want, and now it's loading and it will open it in Visual Studio 2020. So now it will take some time to load and will open in Visual Studio. So as you can see, we have three lines in here: unit using system.collection, system.generics, and unity engine. So unity engine should be in all scripts, otherwise your code will cause error. You can remove the above two if you are not using them. And now you can immediately see here there are this public class test script, which was the name of our script we put from here. So we named the script test script and mono behavior. So it derives from mono behavior, and now we have two functions. Start is called before the first frame update. So yani means it is start is called in first frame only once. So it is called only once when the game starts or when an object starts. And update is called continuously, is called continuously. So the code you put in the update function will continuously run, while the code in the start function will only run once. So let me give you an example. Let's say debug.log. So a debug.log is just a way to print something on our console window. So if you don't have console window open, you can go in Windows, General, and console window. So here is our console window. It is basically used for testing purposes, or where you want to check for a code, if a code is running, or to check for errors or warnings. So is debug.log is used to print something. So we can print anything in the debug.log. Let's write it. So we cannot write print anything without inverted commas. For example, if I say hi, it will give error because it's not a string and it's giving error. So a string is a variable which we will discuss in next part. So for now, if you want to print a string inside the debug.log, you will need to add semicolons, double semicolons, and then you can see everything I type is in a different color. So now we can write hello, hello, and now as you can see we have typed in semicolons, but it is still giving error because in C sharp you have to put a semicolon after every line where each line ends. If you don't put a semicolon, it will give error. So you need to put this semicolon at the end of every line so the code knows that the line has ended, and it should move to the next line, or the code has ended. So now if we will go in here, nothing has printed because the game is not running. So to run the game we need to go and play, click on the play button, and let's check on the console window. So nothing happens. Now this is because our test script is not on any game object, means it's not included in our gameplay like rigid bodies. So let's go and add a component test script. Now we can add our own test script we just made, and now let's see, it should now work. Test script, okay, it printed hello. Unity engine.debug.log hello, it said hello. So as you can see the code only run once. Here it says one time, so that's good. Now if we move it inside the update function, so it will run continuously, means it will keep running until I close or pause the game. So now let's check, and if we check our console window, as you can see the code is still running, and it has run over 1,000 times and it's still going. So you should avoid doing debug.logs in update function because they can cause some lag and cause performance issues unless you need to do some testing, and later you can remove them when you don't need them. So that's it for today's lecture, and I will see you all in next Unity tutorial video.